Okay, it's Dark Trek. Man, I love that intro. My kid put it together. Our buddy Tim Connolly, uh, his old band, Suck It Easy, uh, just did that. It's a tune about Alan Shepard and his Sky Wing, some cool ass superhero kind of jet airplane. National Treasure, Alan Shepard, and new astronaut. Anyway, enough tap dancing, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, man?
I'm here.
That's cool.
I didn't realize you sent me the link at like 10 in the morning. So I'm going like, where the hell is this link I'm supposed to be getting? Oh, there it is.
What?
Had it
Yeah,
for
that's
6 hours.
that's me in a nutshell. Like if I'm doing something like a regular person and not in a panic at the last minute, everybody thinks something's wrong. What? What he did something on time and like a normal person? That can't be. Anyway, yeah, hey man, thanks for talking about Star Trek. Like Mimi and Walker were all like, this is gonna be your dream time talking about Star Trek with Rick, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, I was really looking forward to hanging out with you today. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad that we could figure it out. Sorry I couldn't do it at the normal.
Oh no, man. Like that's just a discussion. You know what I mean? It's like 3, 2, 7:15, whatever you like. It's like we're pretty flexible. So man, I'm glad you said that and not like I'm sorry I couldn't do it a week or two ago when I literally asked you with 45 seconds to go if you had some availability and you're like, I wish I could. I'm working. So.
I know I missed the last 2 or 3 that you guys have done. What have you been talking about?
Well, it's been pretty interesting because John refuses to watch the new season of Discovery.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like talking to Dan Shaheen about Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
He's got some opinions, but they're sort of like bird's eye view opinions.
Right.
So I'm telling him, me of all people, there's a character they're writing this season that's really Star Trekky. It's if you can take the 5 seasons of Discovery and the 3 seasons of Picard and pick out like 3 or 4 characters, you can get a great show. You know, there's like Saru's an excellent Star Trek character, but they have this guy, Captain Rayner. Are you watching it at all?
No. See, I haven't watched it since the first season when I noped out on it. And like,
there's no reason to talk about this then. It's a shit show.
If I just started watching this season, not having watched anything up until this season, would it make any sense to me?
Yes. I mean, it would make as much
years in the future or something, right?
Yeah, it would make as much sense as any of these Star Treks do because they change the format every season, right?
Yeah.
Every season is just like a completely different thing and has no consequence to the stuff that comes later, you know? So it's like, oh, you saved the whole galaxy and nobody ever mentions again. And then this week is like, oh, well, you have to this crisis, global crisis or whatever. That doesn't matter. Everybody's a cat now. It's just the weirdest show ever.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like all of these, and just in general, a lot of these streaming shows that they're sinking so much money into to look like $300 million movies and have earth-shattering consequences. You know, everything is like the greatest thing that's ever happened. But then none of it ever is consequential.
You didn't happen to read that Russo brothers article in Variety yesterday?
I did.
So they're really on it, I think, because they're so deep in comics. Because what you were just talking about is something comics has to deal with like every 7 years, or so. That's what they figure a generation of comics guys are. They pull some giant event, right? Like Crisis on Infinite Earths, or like some other giant. It's New 52, right? But now they're coming so fast that each giant event leads into the next event. And so now all these giant events are like, no, that's just a Tuesday now. right? So where do you go from there?
Yeah.
So that's why the Russo brothers get it, and where you go from there is that the kids coming up are just going to figure out a different way of telling different kinds of stories. Like
Hmm.
film isn't going to go away. It's just going to
Wait,
be
that's Jerry
it's just going to be
Seinfeld is
different.
Jerry Seinfeld doesn't have his finger on the pulse of cinematic entertainment. The, the
That was
guy who
just
made the
so
Pop Tarts movie has not
yeah.
figured out that cinema is dead. Unless
Yeah.
it's about pastry, then it's alive and kicking.
The thing about Seinfeld, man, is like he's 70. He's not, you know, I don't know. I watch all the press and stuff at him and Chris Rock do because I'm just a comedy fan, from way back. I like comedy. And you kind of get the vibe off of Jerry that he's not being treated as an elder statesman of comedy, and he's kind of mad about it. That's what
Yeah,
I think. Because
that gives me the little opening for a plug for my show that's on May 11th on Netflix, the Mark Twain Prize. We have Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and Dave Chappelle all honoring Kevin Hart, and they do get treated like the Mount Rushmore of comedy on that show by Kevin.
That's fine. I actually think that's awesome, and I can't wait. That's May 11th on Netflix.
Part of the Netflix joke festival.
But yeah, no, I think it's funny. You're like, perfect time for a plug. Like, dude, like it's not plugging when it's an awesome thing that the kids need to know about. You're actually, it's not self-promotion. You're just actually doing them basically a favor. Watch this cool thing.
The thing I came out of that project we just did, realizing though, is people like Kevin Hart and Jerry Seinfeld just have too much money. and that inevitably puts them in this world that we don't comprehend, and they start to lose the tendrils of the world that we do comprehend. And it's just a natural thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Where Jerry Seinfeld lives in the Hamptons in a big mansion and is hanging out with Jeffrey Katzenberg or whoever
Right.
the hell, and Kevin Hart is giving TED Talks to billionaires and opening vegan fast food chains and like athleisure wear lines, and comedy is just like one of 17 revenue streams that he has, and these people just start to lose touch with reality, at least the reality that we live in. And so they start to say things that just seem out of touch with reality, and people start to call them on it. and I think they panic because they realize, and they start to overcorrect, and all these things are happening because the people that used to be like have their finger on the pulse of some kind of current reality, like Seinfeld. When Seinfeld made Seinfeld, it was the most current thing that was happening, and like spoke to a lot of people and just like touched the nerve and whatever it was doing. He's no longer that guy, so I think they start to say things to overcorrect or to prove to everyone that they actually have their finger on the pulse more than anybody. And it's it's all kind of.
I love that you think that because of what you're saying, you're bringing up that Jer was on, he was on the streets and he's like, isn't that crazy, all that shit that happens? And it really spoke to people because they're like, yeah, you're right. But like Walker and I blew through Seinfeld during the coronavirus. Yeah. And I liked it, but from this tinge of nostalgia I got, like there were episodes where I remembered like who I watched it with and, stuff like that. So I was digging it on a different level. He was just like, yeah, it's cool. It's, I guess this is technically formally correct and structured and stuff. But I was like, why do you not care? And he goes, this is like, you can tell this entire story in 4 memes. And that was like 3 years ago. He was like 13, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, so that's why I really responded to the Russo brothers going, like, film's not going away. It's just the language is going to be different because of what, like you had a thing with the MTV, editing, cutting thing. You were like right there, like changing the language of visual storytelling. And so somebody who's just used to shooting stuff on their phone is going to do something crazy and we're not going to be able to predict it. But it's still going to be film, right?
Yeah. I remember, we did this thing, when I worked at MTV, we worked on this show called The Big Picture, which was a movie show. And one of the things we're going to talk about today, hopefully, is that Star Trek thing that we did, which was part of this. There it is, the Star Trek logs. Part of these Big Picture special editions that we used to do. One of them we did before we ever did this one, the Star Trek one. I did a Godfather Part 3 one, where basically the movie studios, especially Paramount, would kind of realized they could get a lot of bang for their buck by just handing MTV some money, going, yeah, we'll pay for your half-hour movie special on our movie for the same price of getting a couple of 30-second ads on MTV. You get a half-hour show that they pay for, and they would invite us on the set of things, and we'd interview all the stars. We did that with Godfather Part 3. So I went on the set of Godfather Part 3 when they were shooting in Long Island, was doubling for Sicily. I don't know if anybody remembers that. There was this really old Italian-looking mansion that was on Long Island somewhere that looked like it could have been in Sicily. And there's a scene in Godfather Part 3, I don't know if anybody remembers that movie, where Michael Corleone calls out Sofia Coppola's character for dating her cousin. And she freaks out and goes, "No, Dad, no," and like runs away. Like I was there when they shot that thing. And we interviewed Francis on the set, and what I'm getting to is he in 1990 said to all of us at MTV that the next generation of filmmakers are not going to be coming up from the same place that I came from, where I went to film school and then I started making 16 millimeter movies. And then they're going to come from this digital world where they're going to be making things really cheaply, using digital technology, and they'll be coming from anywhere and everywhere because everybody will have this technology. This dude was saying this in 1990,
Yeah.
And it's totally true today. Like the people who are making little bits of cinema and just sticking it on YouTube with their iPhones are the next Francis Ford Coppola's,
Yeah, absolutely.
What I like, I remember a couple years later, that's where I come into this story about that show. I remember the way I remember this. You told me that Ralph Winter loved the Godfather 3 thing that you did and said, "Does MTV want to do anything else?" And you said, "Hey, Star Trek 6 coming up."
Yeah,
that's the way I remember it, because that's pretty canny. Yeah. That like you didn't just go, "Oh, thanks very much for the kind words on the nice good work." You were like, "Star Trek."
Yeah, no, immediately. Like I'd always wanted to do a Star Trek something, and the Godfather one was we had done a couple. The one that I had done was Godfather. I think we did a Dances with Wolves one. I think that was Paramount. Anyway, we did Godfather, and it was everybody loved it, and so yeah, when Paramount came back with like, yeah, we should plan on trying to do more of these. Like, let's talk about what ones make sense. And I immediately was like, Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Countries coming out, and what about doing one of those? And they were like, well, let's talk about it. And so I immediately had this idea of doing something involving using the next generation. It was all a scam, basically, for me to be able to like get on the set of the Next Generation in some way, shape, or form.
See, here's the thing, though. that's not a scam. Like the kids now would be like, no, you just manifested your destiny, man. Like you needed to be standing on a transporter pad and go, oh yeah, I'm standing on a transporter pad.
Yeah, completely. So we got, so the pitched them I think I had the germ of the idea of the crew of the Enterprise is going to be, we'll get somebody from the next generation. I think, I had floated Picard and they were like, he doesn't do anything, And so I think where you came in was let's conceptualize some idea where Data accesses the ship's logs to like call up the original crew of the Enterprise, and what would be the reasoning why Data would do something like that. So I think that's all I had at the point that you came in.
I remember.
Yeah,
I remember those old Mac 2s. You had one of those things.
Oh yeah.
We were like huddled over your desk in your bedroom, and we'd banged out this really good script, I thought, about Data. He's like, oh, I'm very curious about what happened in the Kittimer Accords or some shit. Whatever. We were like locked in. We had the star dates correct. This was fucking legit. We wrote the whole thing, and I was really happy with it. I figured you were happy with it. And then they go, yeah, he's not going to put the makeup on for this.
Yeah. They actually floated it by Brett Spiner, who's a little bit of a curmudgeon himself. And he was like, no, I'm not sitting in a chair for 2 hours to do this thing on my day off, So I think they floated Counselor Troy. And well, she makes sense. She's an empath. And
yeah, it was an easy fix.
Yeah. She was actually good because I think our pitch to them was, well, Spock was just on the show in that 2-part unification episode. I think that's what it was. And she was curious about the crew of the original Enterprise because she had come into contact with Ambassador Spock and had like wanted to understand the key similarities and differences between the crew of the original Enterprise and the crew of the Enterprise D. So we pitched that, and Marina Sirtis was up for it.
I thought that was really cool, just as a Star Trek fan. Like watching it all the years later, you're like, man, the guys that did that did a good job. You respected the whole Star Trek deal, and cutting between the interviews with the actors like Shatner and Nimoy and stuff. It's fucking seamless because those people are so embedded in our society's consciousness as Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and Dr. McCoy. It doesn't really weird you out that Shatner's got a bump on his noggin from falling off his horse, right? And that's not because that's Captain Kirk anyway, right?
Totally.
Yeah. There's so much stuff in there. I don't know. It's probably because it's such a cool moment in our lives. I watched that, like, I've probably seen that 20 times, showing it to friends and stuff, know? And there's, it's just fucking, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars to me. There's just like certain lines that come out and stuff like stuff DeForest Kelly says, I say all the time. And it's totally because of you and who you were guiding the editing. I totally know, but there was an editor that you were working with that was really good. And
because that was before. Well, I had offlined it myself, and then I worked with I worked with Jeff Spalla maybe or something. This was before nonlinear editing, so it was everything had to be put onto 3/4 inch tape and like use the clunky U-matic. Oh my god!
You should probably talk. You should talk about that because there were no like source stuff for the shots from TOS. So you were using like commercially available VHS tapes.
Yeah, literally.
Remember that?
I think all of the original series stuff that ended up in the episode was literally just bumped up from VHS tape. onto onto 3/4-inch tape, and then that was used as a master. You had to make like offline edit versions of everything you shot that had visible time code burnt into it, and generate an EDL list, and then go into an online session and have it done all again by the computer with the master tapes. It was it was much more of a laborious process than it is now to like cut these things together. But yeah, I had to go through, like, I had all 79 episodes on VHS tape, and like sat around like watching them all on my VHS thing and writing down, okay, 21 minutes and 228 seconds in, that's a good shot. But yeah, you know, my favorite part about it is just that it felt like the parts that actually feel like a Next Generation episode are the parts that, like, the way that we're able to we were able to actually use, like, they gave me like sections of score to like 4 or 5 episodes.
God, that's amazing.
Like, I just had like incidental music from the Next Generation, and they gave us that shot of the Enterprise in dry dock that became the first shot there, and I was able to edit like incidental music in to make it feel like it was a Next Generation episode, and then getting modern sound to actually do the sound effects of all the like of the LCAR systems. Like, it was all just like a little tiny dream come true. But obviously the best part was hanging out with you on the set of the fucking Enterprise.
That was my dream come true. It's like, you know, we know each other forever, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. Rick has worked his life to the point where it's like, hey, I have this amazing thing to do, and it would actually go smoother if I could just go, what's that episode where the girl has the shirt that's obvious, and you'll go, oh, you know, The Empath. Nobody likes that episode. You'd be like, yeah. And I felt like I was like part of, like, wow, I'm like the guest star on Mission Impossible, where like they're doing a Star Trek episode and they need me to tell them what's up with Federation history. So that was super fun.
It was super fun. You know, like, I don't think I really appreciated at the time how cool and once in a lifetime that moment was. I mean, it was obviously super cool and exciting to be on the set of the Next Generation, standing on the bridge. But at the time, none of those characters were as iconic as they are now.
Yeah.
They were like, they you know, that was like 91. So they had been on the air for like 3 or 4 years, and it was definitely a hit show. But Picard wasn't Picard, you know, like,
right.
He's now an iconic character. All of those characters are like almost as iconic as, you know, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy to a whole generation of people now. But at the time, it was like the new facsimile of Star Trek. So we were like, you know, at least I was sort of like, oh, it's cool.
It was starting to get into like regular pop culture consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, Picard had been on the TV Guide a couple of times.
Yeah.
But you're so right. Like, even us that were like insane Star Trek fans, it was just awesome, right? But it wasn't like it would be if like Shatner was at the crafty table going, you know, hey, look, I got 2 different color sneaks on. Like, what's her name? The actress who played Ensign Ro. I talked to her, Michelle Forbes.
Michelle Forbes just sort of wandered by going, what are you guys doing?
Was getting like something from the craft services table.
Yeah.
So I'm just an idiot. I'm going to go over here. And I'm like, oh, hey, you know, I really enjoy your work on the show. And she's like, oh, yeah, check out my shoes, which I thought was a weird thing to say. But like now it's like, no, of course, actors just, that's what they do. It's just weird shit. So I'm like, oh, yeah, you got Chuck Taylor's a black one and a red one. Hey, that's cool. And she went off with her plate off to sick bay or something, you know. And I was like, I really enjoyed, like, I didn't get that Hollywood was as like boringly collaborative as that, you know. And it was like, wow, it's more charming that anything gets done and that some stuff is good, you know, because it's all just people wearing 2 different colored shoes and like mad at Janice in accounting and like, how come I'm late because I couldn't get my parking spot situated, you know. And it doesn't come across when it's like, you know, Captain Picard, free to be Counselor Troy, Captain Picard requires you on base immediately.
I know. When I finally watched it again recently, because you guys were talking about it, I forgot that you had done a voiceover in it. And so seeing that again.
You said that thing about modern sound. I was like, dude, I really appreciate everything about, like, you know, going into the sick bay and seeing the shuttle thing and seeing all the sets and walking around. That was really cool. But the coolest thing to me was going to modern sound and just like getting to pretend that I was Don LaFontaine for a second, you know. that was a blast. I really appreciate it. And I have an IMDb movie credit over that now too.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. Yeah, and watching Rob Legato, who ended up being a pretty big visual effects guy after, like, being second unit director, and he had to direct all of the stuff because I wasn't in the DGA at the time,
right?
So
he was had to I remember he was so cool. He like totally bought into the whole thing. He was like, fuck yeah. And I remember LeVar Burton was really into it too. He loved the whole MTV thing.
Did he? I don't remember.
I talked to him for like 2 seconds, and he was like, "Oh, MTV. Oh yeah, I love your stuff." And I was like, "What the fuck, man?" You know, Geordie LaForge just told me he likes the stuff at MTV. Like, well, you're welcome, Geordie. You know, I mean, come on.
I know. I kind of wish I could go back in time and just relive that day over again. Because you know what you're saying is it is, once you get over the shock value of actually standing on the set of the Enterprise, you realize how kind of mundane the whole thing is. And it does blow the illusion a little bit when you realize this is just their workplace, and you step the second you step like 2 feet this way, it's just fucking plywood, and then there's craft services like 10 feet from the captain's chair over here, and then the hallway down to makeup. It's just like any other kind of like production, and they've been doing it for 5 years now, so they're just all, none of it is special to any of these guys. They're just like, it's Wednesday, you know.
See, that right there is all of what made me love it, because everybody has mundane work stuff, right? And it's like the old like misogynistic joke that like that girl's so beautiful, but somewhere there's like one guy who's sick of her shit.
Yeah,
like that's the thing. It's like you can, you know, you're working on Star Trek, but at some point it's like just another job. So, but the cool thing is, that's true. It's just another job to you. But again, sir, you work on Star Trek, right? It's not just another job and you're like an Olive Garden fry cook or something.
I know. I think most people who end up on Star Trek realize the gravitas of being on Star Trek, you know. So they
the
responsibility and just I think most people understand, wow, there's probably millions of people who would think I'm the luckiest person on the face of the earth right now because I'm like get to like be the navigator on an episode of Star Trek or whatever. But at the same time, once they get into it, you can see that it's like becomes just like a job to them. Memorize the lines, hit your marks, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That was the other thing about the production of that thing with you, with you that I tagged along on. That it was over the Thanksgiving break, right?
Was it?
And because I remember our Thanksgiving dinner we went to Marie Callender's and had some pie, and I just remember, man, this is what everybody talks about for Hollywood, you know, like I was just fucking on the Star Trek bridge, like trying not to throw my leg over the chair because they're going to throw me out and it's going to embarrass my friend. I'm just sitting here going, yeah, this is fucking cool, man, and you know. Now I'm eating Marie Callender's for Thanksgiving, and there was nothing more Hollywood than that whole thing for me. It's really cool.
I don't know if I ever told you, or maybe I told you. I just realized this. Yeah, I forgot that I ended up back on the Next Generation bridge 2 years later.
I was going to bring this up because I'm like, hey, fuck Brent Spiner, because 2 years later.
Yeah. I actually went and found it on YouTube last night. You can't show things on here, can you?
Well, I can't. If Steve was here, he might be able to do it. And there's like something like you get 7 or 10 seconds before they get mad.
Oh, really?
But yeah, you're talking about the MTV Movie Awards, right?
Or it was the MTV Video Music Awards.
Music Awards. Yeah.
Yeah. In '93, I was doing what they call the packaging of the MTV Video Music Awards, like opening title sequence, all the graphics, the little heads and tails before all the nomination packages and things. And I had come up with this idea to do this channel surfing idea where what if it looks like you're just surfing through channels, but every channel you hit is some show that's been like infected by MTV in some way. So we like literally went out to all of these shows and all of these like infomercial people and all kinds of crap, like to all say lines that sounded like they're on their show, but sudden MTV Video Music Awards stuff just comes out of their mouth. Like,
that's so cool.
So, and literally it was, the prime days of MTV. Yeah, so everybody was like, sign us up. We had like Angela Lansbury from like Murder, She Wrote, and then like Married with Children. And then like, I don't know, we had like 20 or 30 different shows, plus like popular infomercial people at the time, like Tony Robbins. And do you remember the guy who used to say like, just by buying little tiny ads in the back of newspapers and putting 1-800 numbers, you can make $1 million. Like had that guy. But of course I reached out to the same people that I dealt with for Next Generation to see if we could get somebody to do something. And they were like, oh yeah, what is it? We just like a 10-second thing. We could do that. I'm like, yeah, but I got to be there. And they're like, well, okay, yeah, you can come Thursday or whatever. So we had, so we ended up having Brent Spiner as Data and Riker do this little tiny scene, like they're in the middle of a Next Generation episode.
Oh, and that's awesome.
It was something like, and it was shot by their crew, and the line was something like, do you think it's of Romulan origin, Mr. Data? No, sir. I believe it's a best dance video. So like that and a couple other things became like the introduction to the best dance video category. And so I get there and Brent Spiner has read the script and decided he wanted to do something else.
Excellent.
He had this whole like,
thanks, Brent.
He was like, can I just pitch you this thing where I kind of turn into Groucho Marx and go, and he had this whole like where Data breaks character and looks at camera and says some kind of punchline. And I was like, that's kind of really not the concept. And and Brent Spiner was like, yeah, but this isn't funny. And I'm like, it's not supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be weird. He's like, all right, okay, I'll do it.
Like you, Brent.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be weird.
Yeah, that was a bizarre, surreal experience. But it was weird to just kind of walk back onto the set of The Next Generation after a couple of years and feel like, oh, here I am again. Just right. And it wasn't really that even big a deal. Oh, yeah, set looks the same. But the weirdest
part, just transferred over from another ship.
Yeah, exactly. The weirdest part, though, was after we were done, Frakes goes like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And like, we walk up to the sort of top of the bridge, where kind of wharf hangs out. I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, they call that the horseshoe.
Up to the top of the horseshoe. Yeah. And he's like, any chance I could get a pair of tickets to the show? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Let me look into that. Well, how would I get them to you? He's like, oh, just tell whoever we deal with. And I never got him tickets. Should have.
Oh, well.
Sort of like, I don't want to get Riker tickets to the show. I don't like Riker. If I don't like it. I don't know if if Picard had asked or Worf maybe, but I didn't want to like bust my balls to get.
It is kind of a weird thing because like isn't he like number 2 on the call sheet, right? And then just be like, hey, can I get some tickets? Seems kind of like not a number 2 kind of thing to do. That's all.
Yeah, it just felt weird.
Yeah. God bless.
So I didn't bother.
He's a venerated director now. God bless.
Yeah, he moved on with life. Yeah, I'm sure he was fine. Not going to the VMAs.
This Kieran McNulty, man, this guy, he's pretty funny. Today I posted this picture of a 1961 spacesuit that I'd seen. It's exactly like all the Major Matt Mason. You might be a hair too young for that, but it was like a GI Joe kind of doll. It was only about 8 inches tall. The bendy wires, Anyway, it was based on this 1961 suit because that's what they thought they were going to the moon on, and it was just the inside. It wasn't the outside, so it looked really cool and spacey and futuristic. I had tons of them. Anyway, after I got that 2001 suit, I'm like out of getting spacesuits. Not doing that was my holy grail. There's just no other suit I like more, So
yeah.
But then I saw this and I'm like, wow, nobody's saying that Walker can't 3D print something like that for me and can figure out. I know about anyway. So I just was like, no. And Kieran, God bless this guy. I was up there for like 10 minutes and he just linked the NASA PDF file about all of the spacesuit stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Like Chris Sagasaga just tipped me off to this thing is like Apollo 28. It's like game stuff about this, like a D&D type game. The rules is about this much, but the book is like that because the rest of it is all NASA stuff. So I just bought that because it's cool. And guess what's not in there? The spacesuit thing that Kieran linked. So I'm like printing it out right now. I'm going to make a little booklet to go with
nice.
Anyway.
Why don't we talk about some things that people can relate to?
Okay. I mean, what do you mean? Everybody loves Star Trek, man. And that story, that MTV story, you never really got that whole thing out.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to have like vomited it all over everyone here. But I want to. Is anybody actually even watching? Does anybody have any? I want somebody that we can respond to.
We got Hector Gonzalez is here.
Oh yeah.
Kieran. And I guess those are the 2 guys that we know. There's like 4 or 5 guys. Actually, somebody just dropped off right when you said, "Is there anybody here?" It went down by 1.
They're like, enough with this guy.
Yeah. Oh, Rick's gonna stop talking about that cool MTV thing. All right, I'm gone.
I want to know. I just want to talk about old Star Trek. I want to first of all, has anybody else watch Star Trek on Pluto TV? You know how obsessed I am with Pluto TV. Yes. And I love watching the original series on Pluto TV because it feels like when I was a kid watching, just turning on and a random episode of Star Trek would be on that I would never pick to watch, like The Empath or something.
Right.
And then you're just in the middle of it and you go, oh yeah, this was actually better than I remembered or whatever. But what the hell's going on, man? They've been showing Next Generation for like 2 solid weeks now. And there's like, did they kick the original series off of Pluto? It's been going in this rotation where they do like 5 seasons of Next Generation or even all 7 seasons of Next Generation. Then they do like either once or twice through all of the original series.
Wow, that's weird.
And now it's gone through like Next Generation like 4 times. Like, I'm worried that they just said, nobody likes this old shit.
I wonder if it's just contractual though. They're always going through those things where, like, they don't like Paramount doesn't have the rights to like some of the movies now. Like, it's just some weird thing that I don't know. So maybe that's going on with Pluto.
Yeah, I hope that they haven't like lost the rights to show the original series. Not that I can't watch it any episode I want at any time on streaming or have them on a Blu-ray. But I just like the idea that I could turn on the television and Star Trek is on. And there's
I totally get it.
I want to know.
TV.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, and therefore all of our many viewers right now. if you could pick one Star Trek, like you could only watch one Star Trek episode for the rest of your life, could be any Star Trek episode from any of the series. What one would you pick? It's the only one you get to watch for the rest of your life.
I like questions like that because I feel I should challenge myself.
Yeah.
Because I always have to think of all the stuff that I've memorized. Like, there's no way I would take Omega Glory with me because I can close my eyes and watch that from beginning to end whenever I feel like.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool idea. It's like, what's a cool, like, obviously all the Star Trek from beginning to end, but not like one that it's a favorite. So much that I could kind of, me and Walker could perform it that you would know which episode it was.
Yeah, but it's still
on the island.
Ticks all the boxes of a good Star Trek episode.
Right.
That whenever
I might say Return of the Archons is that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, I don't, it has a couple of cool lines,
Yeah.
But it's nobody's like, oh, that's the best one ever. And,
right, but it would be original series episode for you. It would be. It would
pretty Star Trekky.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do one for every series. Like Darmok is probably that for me in Next Gen. That's just complete Star Trek from beginning to end.
Yeah, see,
I
could only do it for the original series and Next Generation because I never really got into any of the other ones. But the original series, I don't know if even until recently I would have ever said this, but it's got to be What Are Little Girls Made Of?
Are you kidding me? That's great.
I love that episode because it's an early episode, so Kirk looks great. Everybody looks great. It's got my favorite guest star ever.
I was gonna say it's got great cast.
It's got Ted Cassidy as Ruck is my favorite guest star and my favorite kind of guest character. It's just something about him that is there's something kind of sad about Ruck because he's kind of been left there and he didn't ask for any of this, but he just does what he's programmed to do. And he's like incredibly physically imposing and could fucking tear you in half if he wanted to. And he's so physically imposing in that episode. That scene when he first comes in and just grabs Kirk and slams him up against the wall is like frightening to me every single time. But I also love when Kirk starts like fucking with him and asking him about like what's going on and with the old ones, that whole old
right.
And he just goes so long ago. Like with the sad look on his face, like those were the days, that I just love. I just could watch that, and then of course there's Sherry Jackson as Andrea with the best costume ever created for any television show ever in history. I mean, how the hell did they get away with that in 1966? It's insane.
Drusilla from the Cloudminders is that one for me. Like, how do you get away with this? It's like completely engineered and structured and otherworldly and on a beautiful woman. And like, it's just a throwaway in a kid's show on Friday nights at 10:30 or whatever.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There apparently was a lot of usage of double-sided tape.
One imagines.
Because you can show cleavage, but you can't show under boob in the 60s.
Right. Well.
Or side boob. So there was a lot of like adjusting the thing so that they,
Can you imagine that's your job in rights and clearances or censors or whoever, whatever they call it? They're like, okay, this is clearly going to have to go a half inch this way. I mean, like, it's all so whim-based. It's like nobody's got a protractor and like, well, the curve of the boob is under 23 degrees,
Yeah.
It just seems so weird and so arbitrary. No belly buttons, right? For I Dream of Jeannie, I was like,
oh, right.
Okay.
I know. Why are belly buttons a thing,
The 60s.
Yeah.
Kieran said he's going to take any of the lighter Deep Space Nine ones. I don't
Okay.
remember any of those.
Yeah. Sort of hanging out on the promenade as hijinks ensue. Yeah, I could get with that. I was never a big Deep Space Nine fan, and I think it's my fault. It's me. It's not Deep Space Nine. Because I was a purist at the time Deep Space Nine came out, with the idea of it being Star Trek.
Yeah, like, ship-based show. Yeah.
This space station is not trekking anywhere. It's staying right where it is. That's not trekking, So yeah. I was prejudiced against Deep Space Nine, and I think actually when Deep Space Nine came out, I was also getting a little sick of Star Trek, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I think it was at a point in my life where I'd like absorbed all of the original series episodes and watched them a million times, and then all of the Next Generation episodes and all of the movies, and then the movies, and then Star Trek V came out, which really almost made me hate Star Trek for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I almost had to give up on Star Trek when Star Trek V came out. So thank God Star Trek VI came out.
Star Trek VI came out. Get your religion again.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I had kind of I was in the point where I was almost putting Star Trek in the world of those were things that the young man enjoyed, and now I'm an old
right.
You know what I mean?
Now it's time to put away the childish thing.
Yes, and I need to move on to other things. Trying to be more prove to everyone I was more of an adult. But you can never escape Star Trek. But I never actually went back and watched the entire Deep Space Nine series. I know a lot of people say it's the best one.
I'm with you. I mean, it just doesn't. It's fine. I don't go back and rewatch it. It was great. I enjoyed it at the time. There's some cool stuff. They put Billy Mummy in a Star Trek, so I thought that was cool. And especially because it was widely believed that Deep Space Nine existed because they didn't want to buy Babylon 5 from Straczynski. So putting an actor from Babylon 5 into Deep Space Nine is super cool too on that level. But literally, then I start running out of stuff to enjoy about Deep Space Nine because it's such a bleak show,
It's bleak, and I hate the Ferengi. I've always hated the Ferengi. I hate everything about them. I hate the idea that okay, I'm sick of Star Trek now.
But check it out. For more depressing reasons, but too late, as he's already gotten his son into it. Let me forget. So you've done your job, sir. I'm telling you, Kieran, watch Tomorrow's Yesterday, and you will just love it because however cool you think you are, man, you got to do the right thing as a dad because you're raising the first man on Saturn. So that's a good one.
Anyway. I think I've gotten great Grace. My daughter has a begrudging respect for Star Trek now. I think.
Yeah.
I think she used to walk into the room when I was watching Star Trek and just laugh at it. And she described it as, "Oh, you're watching that show where they say, there's a thing happening outside the ship that's on this television we're watching. Let's push these buttons to make it go away. Beep, boop, beep, beep, boop. Oh, it blew up." There was
not wrong.
No.
That's the beginning of Spectre of the Gun, right?
But then when last summer, we went to the Ticonderoga Star Trek, the Ticonderoga thing, and I made Kid go, and I said, "Okay, you're going to this tomorrow, Grace. So we're gonna watch an episode that you're going to like, so that you will appreciate this by the time you go tomorrow." So we watched the Doomsday Machine. I thought that would be a good one for her because it's got a lot of action. A big, crazy machine thing with lots of drama. Oh my God, is he going to fly the space shuttle into the thing and explode? It's got a lot of things that a non-Star Trek fan can appreciate. The battle of wills between,
sure,
all of that.
Just all of Decker is like just anguish, right? Don't you think I know that? It's like people kind of make fun of it, but man, if you're in the room watching that by yourself, you're like, that poor motherfucker. He killed all his friends, trying to save them.
Yeah.
Anyway. I love that melodramatic 60s stuff, man. I love it.
Oh yeah, you can't get enough of it. And the music in that episode, even though you've heard it in 15 other episodes, like just it's the Star Trek equivalent of the Jaws theme, It's so great.
See, that's why we don't need that one on the island, because you could just be doing the music, right?
Yeah, like I didn't. I hadn't watched Doomsday Machine in a long time before I watched it with Grace, and I had never watched the remastered version because up until recently I was a original version snob. Where I'm like, I get it, remaster, I had to remaster them, but I don't want to watch all that CG shit. I like the old crappy effects, which I still do.
Sure.
But there's a lot of the remastered effects, especially in Doomsday Machine, that are pretty damn cool. Because
I really enjoy it, because it's like I get to watch Star Trek again, right? Because I know them so well from the old days. And then they really did it in a charming and unobtrusive way, too. Like, there's stuff that in the old days is just Sulu going like this, right? But now they cut, and there's a 3-second shot of a cool little bulbous ship or something blowing up. That's cool. Yeah. I'm down. I think it's cool.
I know. You go back and watch the original version of the Doomsday Machine now, and you're like, they literally took one of the AMT models and, like, hung it from fishing line and changed it to 1017 or whatever.
Right.
And because that's
the only numbers they had on the decal sheet, right? The thing I love about that is that if the reason you know that, and I know this for a fact because I saw you do it, is because you did one of those AMT models, and you can tell it's very distinctive how the cells droop.
Yes.
There's this professional model makers is like, that's a fucked up model, man. The things are just going to look like that. And it's on TV. It's fucking canon. It's there.
I know. You can see it. And they kind of got away with it because the Constellation had been destroyed.
Right. So it probably bent the nacelle strung.
They obviously just do what we did when we were kids, and they just burnt some of the plastic with a lighter.
Yeah.
Okay, that's some good battle damage.
Yeah, boy, that was probably pretty toxic. I used to do that a lot in my room.
Nobody will ever watch this in high definition 30 years from now and like notice all the seams.
Why would you ever even have that thought, right?
Yeah.
It's so
what I didn't realize until I was reading a lot of these Are the Voyages, those big books. I don't know if you ever got those, but they're fascinating. Yeah, absolutely. That's not These Are the Voyages. That's not Mark Altman and Ed Gross's book. The oral history stuff. These Are the Voyages is somebody else. There's one for each season. They're about that thick.
Yeah. I haven't read those, but I know of that stuff. Yeah,
those are awesome. Because you can watch an episode and then go flip through and read, the pre-production and then the production.
Oh yeah. I just went down an internet rabbit hole. Like, somebody was really offended by what's the one with Lazarus? What's that one? I forget the title.
Oh, Alternative Factor.
Alternative Factor. Someone was really offended by the alternative factor and how, like, none of the shots match up when they're going in between, And so he, like, went to wherever Roddenberry's papers were donated, some school down in LA. He went there and somehow got access to stuff and just spent. He's like, I'm doing research for this book, and he just made it a website. But it's extensive, and he just like tracked it's like a 8-day shoot.
Yeah,
and they had that's what the weather was like, and there's nothing you can do, right?
Well, they were way behind. The whole story about Baranor's dad and all that. Right? Yeah. That put him like a day behind,
right?
Because he just didn't show up, or he quit the night before, and then they were shooting in Vasquez Rocks. And they just kept getting farther and farther behind. And the light, you can tell in a few of the shots of that episode, that they barely have enough light left to get this last shot off. Because it's gone from like looking like midday to looking like twilight in one shot. And then they cut to like Kirk's reaction, Kirk's point of view, and it's, stage 9 or 10 or at Paramount where he's got his little like UFO, the time machine thing.
Hey, I want to say we got Phil here. That's cool. He loves the original effects, but I don't want to get away from that. That as a kid, it didn't bother me at all. In fact, I didn't even think about it until somewhat recently, right? Because I always assumed my entire life of watching Star Trek that was just a thing that they were doing on purpose to show the difference between, and I just kind of like lost track. Yeah. Like one that's Lazarus A and that's Lazarus B, I guess, because it's 6 o'clock at night, and this guy's it's like 10 in the morning. So
it's funny to think about how you're used to perceived it. And I was sort of the same way. You kind of like suspend your disbelief and you incorporate the limitations they have and make reasons for them in your head. I don't know if today's generation does that nearly as much. Because there's so pristine effects and it's pristine cinematography. Like my kid Grace will walk in and watch. She walked in on the alternative factor and immediately starts pointing out that his beard doesn't match, and immediately starts pointing out like, oh, that's why they were just standing on that rock and now they're on a set, because she's used to watching shit on streaming where they've spent $300 million to make one episode and everything is like, feature film quality.
But we were raised, that's what I was going to say. We were raised exactly the opposite, that shit's going to happen. And then you get a no prize if you use your brain. Right. Yeah. Like, we forgot to print the yellow plate, but in the letters page, here's Dave from Cincinnati saying, well, that's because, we had the blue gel on there because of the danger room when we were fighting Nightcrawler, and everybody goes, yay. And like that kind of, that kind of creativity and interaction with your entertainment is just kind of missing.
Yeah.
Like my kid doesn't, but that's because he's mad he doesn't have Victoria Alonso's old job already.
Yeah.
So like normal people just don't interact that way anymore.
But this is why I realized that the remastered effects in Star Trek are a necessity, because I'm with who said they love the original effects?
Yeah, sorry, I flipped through that really fast. That's our buddy Phil.
Phil, yeah. Phil, I'm with Phil. I love the original effects because I fell in love with them. They remind me of watching it in 1972 or whatever. Right. And I just love the idea of how much they were battling their crappy budgets and the limitations of printing shit on an optical printer 7 generations down and it looking complete ass, getting away with it. But it's so much of a barrier now that a 14-year-old girl would look at that original effects and go like,
right.
This, there's no way I can
watch
watch
knives and bear skins, right?
Yeah, totally. But I also thought that most of the remastered effects are done with love and they match. There's something a little too digital about them in general, and they seem to almost be at another frame rate than the rest of the episodes. When you watch them streaming, all of a sudden you'll cut to the digital Enterprise and it's kind of like in a weird frame rate.
I was gonna say, just as a consumer, I don't know the digital effects world at all, but I totally agree with you about the Enterprise shots. Yeah, but that's because that's the star of the show, right? That's the beauty thing. And if the technology isn't there to make it photorealistic, I mean, what are you gonna do?
Most of the episodes, you can tell when it's one of the earlier episodes that they remastered because the Enterprise looks like shit. There's a few episodes that I think the Enterprise where they ended up redoing the Enterprise model because the first couple of episodes looks very, and for some reason the Galileo 7 episode is almost unwatchable. The effects are
really,
so the Enterprise looks like a PS2 game. The Galileo just looks like a cartoon. And at the end, when Spock is like pulls the shit of like blasting out the fuel and igniting it, it looks like it's like neon green, and you can see all these like digital artifacts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did they think that was going to match anything else? But 95% of the shit is seamless enough. It could have been so much worse.
It could have been worse. It could have been.
It could have been George Lucas putting little fucking Jawas running around. You know.
I was afraid it was even worse than that. I was afraid it was going to be New Coke, and that they were just going to go, "This is how it is now," and then I'd be like, "Great, I'm not a Star Trek fan anymore." And then they panic, and then it goes back, and nobody cares. That's what I was afraid was going to happen.
Yeah,
but it didn't, and that's why I have this jacket. Yeah, I tell a story all the time, but you were there. Remember, because we got our Monster Maroons at the same time. And man, my dad did not understand what that was all about. And so all the jewelry stuff that goes with it, you know, the insignia and stuff, he's like, "What? No, you're not. No." And I'm like, "But that's part of it, right? Like this is a future military uniform, and it's you're telling me that I don't get my sergeant bars and my fucking medals. I need this stuff." And he just wasn't having it. And so, you know, I secretly got like one of these, you know, put it on my army jacket and stuff. But that's why the reason I'm telling this is because like 2 days ago, like Walker says, like, "You really have one of everything, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's because your grandfather was giving me shit about a $5 pin in 1982. And now I'm 60 and I have one of each."
I don't even know what happened to my Monster Maroon thing. I wore it once or twice. It kind of probably got thrown out with everything else that was in my mom's house when we packed her house up.
That's the thing about that stuff, right? It's just there's too much. That's why my Chewbacca mask from the old days showing up was amazing.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
my Darth Vader mask, my Don Post Darth Vader mask.
You still have that?
I still have that. Yep.
So there's a guy who restores movie props named Tom Spina. Spina, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Tom Spina Designs. He's fucking amazing, and he just redid my Chewie. So.
Oh wow!
If you need your Darth Vader buffed up and looking perfect, I don't know if that's the thing, because you're not really restoring anything. I don't know.
No, it's fine the way it is.
It's fine. You need a nice glass case for it though, and a little brass plaque that says "This was fucking mine."
Yeah,
Screamies original to my head.
Do you still have the Admirals? No, you didn't make an Admirals uniform. You made a standard Captain Kirk motion picture.
Yeah, that one's gone.
That's gone.
I have pictures of that though, so I don't feel bad that it doesn't exist anymore, because that was pretty rough. I kind of best guessed it from pictures in McCall's magazine that my mom had.
Yeah,
they did some press on Star Trek, and then I hand sewed it, so it's not like that looked really good from 3 feet away. You know?
Yeah,
the insignia was construction paper.
Official patch of some kind, right? Didn't you have?
I eventually got the embroidered patch out of an ad in the back of Starlog, but the one that we took to the movie was just cardboard. I mean, construction paper.
It was. So
and then
December 7th, 1979, at the Plaza Cinema in Rutland, you the one that got in the Rutland Herald newspaper.
Yeah, that's the one.
That wasn't the sewn-on one. I can't remember.
No, because you know what? Nobody's gonna look at it in the future and digital, 300 DPI. It looked great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The little bio thing too was I had handmade out of a piece of balsa wood.
Oh yeah,
no, I remember. I worked for like 3 days on that.
Yeah, you just hand carved it out and painted it black, right?
That's what I did.
I still have a soft spot in my heart for those uniforms probably because of that whole experience. Because that was like the first time I experienced the Larry Young level of fandom. Where like we were so impressed. This dude sewed his own costume thing. He carved this friggin' thing out of balsa wood, and like now he's going by himself to the movies. And so I'm like, I'm gonna tag along with this guy to go see Star Trek the motion picture.
I called the Herald too, and I told him I was going to be there. That's how that happened. I just arranged all of that. And you know, honestly,
it was a slow news day.
My son was born. That was my greatest achievement, actually. The thing I was most proud of, that you were like, I gave birth to your fandom, because you were like, that's a thing you can do, I guess. Hey, let's do it. And we had such a blast as kids doing that, man. That was awesome.
That was, like up until that moment. I mean, I always loved Star Trek and I loved Star Wars. I was a giant Star Wars fan. But I wouldn't have considered myself like a Trekkie or like anything like that until December 7th, 1979. From that moment on, like, because
the light shone upon you.
Yeah, because that was just so cool seeing you getting your picture taken. Yeah. That was a real cinematic experience for me watching Star Trek the motion picture. For some reason, I just fucking loved it. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, it was boring. You're looking at the Enterprise." I loved every fucking minute of it because I just loved the idea that they took this shitty little TV show and expanded it to this huge thing, and it was so well thought out. The Enterprise looked amazing, and like all the designs and the sets and everything was just like what they would have done if they had all this money. Like, it was mind blowing to me that like it was like they let the kids loose in the big candy store, and like they got to do what they always wanted to do. It was like all this huge positive experience, Star Trek the motion picture. That's why I always come down on people online when they badmouth in the pajamas or talk about how boring it was to look at the Enterprise for 15 minutes. I'm like, fuck all you people.
Well, those people just have no joy, because like think about us, for example. Like, we in the middle of nowhere, Vermont in 1979, you wouldn't think would be ground zero for like a Star Trek thing. Yeah. But that was a giant line. You know, they had that giant cardboard standee of the prober down Enterprise with everybody pictures, and they made it kind of like this is a deal. So whoever ran that little theater really he knew what he was doing, right? Yeah. And so 50 years later or whatever it is, two guys are going, you know, that was really cool. And so because everybody for a minute was part of Hollywood in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. And that's I think that's what gives me the joy for Star Trek in particular, but just all pop culture in general. It's like, hey man, the thing that you like, you can just be part of it if you want. You know? Nobody's stopping you.
I forgot about how many people were there that night, and it felt like a little event, almost like a little Rutland, Vermont movie premiere.
It really did.
Everybody was excited.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, that's why we were talking online about movies being events anymore and whether they are or not. Like, when there are movies that are events that you've been waiting forever for, and they finally come out, and you have to be there on the first fucking night. Like, there's nothing like that feeling.
Right.
When the new whatever movie is opening, and you gotta be there because you gotta be the first person to see it. And I don't know if there's too many times when those moments exist in your life anymore, because everything is so like disparate and everybody's watching everything something different, and like everybody waits for it to show up on streaming, or like, but those moments you can have, like the new, like Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be one of those moments where it's like, got to be there on the first night. There's not a lot of that anymore.
I love, just because of reading Starlog back in the day, I love spoilers and rumors and all that crap, because that's just what you live for, right? In the old days, getting my Starlog, which was mailed to me in a brown wrapper, right? Like it was like, here's the news from the planet of awesome.
Yeah.
And
once a month, you get some like science fiction news in a magazine.
yeah, so I think that that's what's going to happen to movies is that you're still going to have your movies to watch, but there's going to be like 3 event movies each year. You know,
Yeah.
maybe they'll do a Christmas movie. There's a big summer movie, and then maybe something in March for the people who want to go see movies. But and then stuff you can't predict, like Oppenheimer, Barbie. Like, what the hell, right? Like, no one can tell me they saw that coming.
No, that came out of nowhere. There's always going to be those kind of unexpected things that somehow hit a nerve. It's we're in a weird world where the streamingness of everything is going to shake out in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's none of it is sustainable, and Paramount Plus is losing oodles and oodles and oodles of money. Disney can't figure out if Disney can't figure out how to make money making Star Wars and Marvel and whatever else for franchises they have, they can't figure out how to make money with that shit. Like it's all gonna like settle down into something sustainable, and movies will still be movies. I hope.
I agree. I think that's what's going to happen because movies are movies and TV is TV. And you can put $300 million episodes on TV, but like everybody, we have a giant TV, a great sound system.
Yeah.
If I sat a little too close, it'd be like in the theater, right? Except it's just not. Because it's me and my kid, and somebody goes, "Hey, can I put this on pause? I have to go to the bathroom." "Oh, Dad, make me some popcorn." Like, which doesn't happen in the movie theater.
Yeah.
And it's fun and it's great, but it's not the same thing.
No, yeah. And when you go to the movies, you're making a decision to have a communal experience with an audience and let go of any distractions for 2 hours or whatever, 2.5 hours or whatever it's going to be. Should only be 2 hours. But sometimes there's exceptions to the rule. But
Phil has a great thing about how he found the tribe. We made our own tribe. Dude, there's so much funny crap from when we were kids that I don't think you even remember, but that is just part of my daily life. Like every time I see your name, I hear in my head, Rick Austin. And I'm sure you don't remember this. But
I remember it, but why? Why was it Rick?
There was some fucking idiotic assembly at school, and there was some guy with some kind of gizmo.
Oh.
And you get called to go up, and they go, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Austin." That's what his little gizmo said with your name.
I totally
just
about that. He had
like burned into my brain forever.
I sort of remember it. I think I may have blocked.
Right. I mean, I sort of remember it. It's just your name anyway.
Are conventions still a thing? You brought up the Gene Roddenberry convention in the 70s. I know like Star Wars Celebration and things like that. But are there still Star Wars conventions? Because I remember going to a Star Trek convention, probably 1980 or 81 or something was maybe the first one.
There are still creation cons. There are still local cons. There's a Connecticut con called Terrific Con that our buddy Mitch does, who does Trek on John Suntory's Word Balloons channel. There's local shows. There's stuff in Sacramento. They have WonderCon down in Anaheim or LA. Yeah. So the con thing is still a deal.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of they're not comic book conventions, they're pop culture shows.
Yeah.
Which is cool if you're like me, right? Like, awesome. Hey, I just like ran into Aubrey Plaza and talked to her for 10 minutes. But some guys are like mad that they're like, well, I'm looking for Machine Man 3 and I can't find it here. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's a specific comic from 1978, right? It's like
you thought every comic ever made was going to be here. That's it.
Right, exactly. Like if you're setting up at this booth, you're bringing stuff that's going to sell, not like I hope somebody buys this.
Right.
Because that's just moving boxes around.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should sell this. Would they come get us?
I wish
did you
it was.
see what I did for this? I had this like professionally.
Oh yeah, didn't you sent me a copy of it?
Did I? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kind of friend I
And
am.
there's a really shitty copy of it online.
I send people to that actually. It's cut up into 4 spots.
Yeah.
Like
That's
probably half of they started getting a big bump in their numbers like 3 years ago when I found that. Because I would tell everybody all the time. It's like, wow, nobody's looked at this for 10 years, and now 17, 18 people are looking at it. That's amazing. What's going on?
Exactly. Everybody should go watch it. Everybody go watch it. And
also, speaking of cons and bringing stuff, I wasn't going to do this, but I have to show it since I was waving stuff in front of the camera. You know what I got today? I'm so excited. Back in 2001 or so, I did this column called Loose Cannon.
Wow, what's that?
It's just the subhead here says cogent analysis of and rude suggestions for the comic book industry 2001 to 2005. So I had a column on comic book resources back when it was good. And so that's stuff like my Commandy pitch, and Charlie and I did a Batman Elseworlds that we pitched DC. So it's just 50,000 words that were on a website that I felt like I needed a book. So last year at the con, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. collection I did, because I wrote reviews of that for 7 years. Like, that was kind of a big hit. It was weird. Like, 2 people that worked on the show were like, what's this? And they were like, oh, I have to buy 3 of these to give to people. And
wow.
Anyway, so I just was like, it made me think that like I have this column that's sitting around from like whatever it is, 15, 17 years ago, doing nothing. I might as well collect it. And it's pretty cool, man. And so I got like our buddy Brian Shaneman, who has one of these jackets. He's on the show a couple of times.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer, and my buddy Brad Moss, who has it on MSNBC.
Oh yeah.
And Nancy Sen, professional comedian. I realized they're all lawyers, so I got them to do. Like I got Rick Austin and Mark Bernardin to do text pieces in Shatter. I got all my lawyer buddies to do that. So it's what's it say?
I still get a kick out of seeing Moss with his Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. book.
That guy's great, man. I just if he did that once, I would think that guy's a superstar. He's like, no,
he's still doing it. I can't
that
believe
lives there now.
And MSNBC must see it and be like, "Oh, that's just Brad. Whatever. We're not going to bust his balls."
Because you put your stuff up behind you that you want to put behind you, right?
Right, to make it look like, "Oh, I'm scholarly" or whatever.
Well, he's the S.H.I.E.L.D. counsel, man.
It's weird because you would think someone. Oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. is a Disney ABC property, and we're NBC. We can't be advertising, and that they don't give a shit.
So little on the screen that you can make it out if you know what it is, but it just looks like a blob.
I'm sure somebody on MSNBC has called it out at some point. Like, what's up with that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing? Somebody else went, I don't worry about it.
The feeling is that you're right, because I was following this like it was like, oh, have they seen the wolves? The wolves aren't endangered, right? You haven't. Like, where, is the book up today? And so my kid, we would just watch it because Brad was on, right?
Yeah.
And my kid would say, like, I'm not watching the news if Bradley's not on. And I told him that, and he thought that was great. So he's like, all right, well, we'll get Walker a reason to watch this. Look, I'm putting his dad's book up there. And so he did that for about a month. And then all of a sudden there started to be, like, right here, there started to be, like, see Rachel Maddow at 7 o'clock Monday, that was just covering it up. But they kind of stopped doing that. So out that somebody said something and they did that while they figured it out, and then they don't care.
Right.
Or
hilarious.
Just the top of egotism, and like nobody cares at all. Like so us even talking 5 minutes about it is like nobody cares. Anyway, I don't. From a legal, I'm not a lawyer, but what are they going to do, right?
Nothing. I mean, they would.
It's a book.
They would go, hey, Brad, next time you're on, you want to just take the stupid Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. things down, the joke's over. But
then they'll put this up that has his name on it. It's a big bomb. Look, he's advocating violence of some kind.
Exactly. I think they would call that out because of like, imagine
because the bomb's lit, right? So that's actually advocating violence. Like if it was just there, what are you gonna do? It's a bomb,
Yeah, and
look at the little
Washington, and then they cut to Brad Moss.
Look what I did to the. Can you tell what I did to the Comic-Con logo? I
did
when Walker was like 6.
Mimi
was out on a business trip and she was coming home late. And he was staying up and he was crying like, "Where's mommy?" And I said, "Hey man, we'll make little things." So I wrapped some construction paper around our arms and like, here's the thing. I made a little screen. I'm like, here's you and here's the buttons. You can call mommy. Tell me when the aliens come. She can keep track of this. And it was fun. Like I was just being an idiot, but for an hour we're making these cool little things, right?
Yeah.
And so I drew that in like 7 seconds. Like, I'm calling you. See, okay, that's you talking to me. And I hung it up like on the wall next to the phone, and I looked at it for like a week, and I'm like, it was really growing on me. I'm like, you know what? That's awesome. Like my kid does have like a little caricature face with his big ears and his glasses, and mop of hair, like. And so that just like he went through this thing where I really liked it, and so he had to hate it. And then like when he was around 12 or 13, I'm like, this isn't going away. I mean, you're lucky I didn't make this big flag to put on the flagpole out front. And so I put in the the San Diego logo is that eye, right? It's just a close up of an eye, like you're reading the Comic-Con International.
Oh yes. Totally.
So I clipped that out and put that little thing in there with him, like as the year that he actually came to San Diego for the first time. I was like, hey, it's Walker Young, San Diego, and so now I'm like, oh, let's make stickers, and this is the official, only available in San Diego version.
Wow.
Anyway. Thank you for listening to me babble about that, because I don't know if you know this, I used to publish books, so new books coming out, it's kind of fun. It's like, hey, fresh out of the oven.
Well, we're going to need to wrap this up soon, but you need to.
Jesus, never 122. I'm so sorry, man.
You need to, but you never answered the quiz of what you said what original is. You never said what original series episode you would take to your desert island.
Didn't I say Return of the Archons?
Oh, you did say Return of the Archons.
I'll give you another one though. I'd probably take, but like it'd be a cool mid-level one that like had some Star Trek in it, but I didn't. I would be trying to like prove a point to myself. It's like, hey man, you need to appreciate this one a little more. So like maybe Paradise Syndrome.
Yeah.
Private Little War.
It's funny, Paradise Syndrome. I posted on your little serious Star Trek when I was at Vasquez Rocks the other day.
Yeah. Oh man, that was crazy cool.
Last weekend I took a walk to the planet of the Paradise Syndrome.
Oh, cool.
Which is literally like 10 minutes from my house. Is this place called Upper Franklin Canyon Reservoir, and that is where they built the obelisk for.
Oh, that's cool.
And it looks on. It's just a reservoir in between the 101 freeway and the 405 freeway. And it's, down in or surrounded by hills. So it looks, once you get down in there, it looks like the planet of the Native Americans.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, by the way, I always wanted to go. I never made it down there. It takes like about 40 minutes to walk down in there. It was been closed because of like too much rain.
Oh.
We got down there and it's like, oh, right, this is exactly where the obelisk was. And here it looked. That's where they had it looks pretty much the same because it's all these trees.
Yeah, why wouldn't it? That's awesome.
Yeah. But my kid cannot countenance that episode. She's like,
oh, really? It's too racist or something?
Why are they culturally appropriating the Native American culture? I'm like, no, there was a
There's a line about this, Grace.
Yeah, got to get to the part where they explain away why they're just reusing some Indian costumes that were laying around by explaining there was a race of super intelligent aliens that seeded all these Native Americans throughout the friggin' galaxy. So now it all makes sense.
You might want to tell her that's kind of what's going on in Discovery this season. Is the progenitors 800 years ago, a Romulan scientist found some progenitor stuff that had technology that was just not appropriate for everyone. So he encased it in this thing and broke it up into 8 pieces and sent it out into the world. And now we have to spend all season looking for each of these 8 pieces to put it together and save everybody. It's the dumbest fucking shit ever. But at least some old Star Trek references, like the guys who do 71 Easter eggs will have something to talk about. But it's all just somebody who learned a language phonetically, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
Now we are encountering the Breen, which you remember the Breen, of course, from that episode. You know what I mean? It's like all written like that.
There's something about that feels almost condescending. Like we know we have to dangle these little carrots of Star Trek nets so you won't lose focus, you Trekkies. So it's
almost
here's the Gorn or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah, it's almost worse. Like if me and John took over, we would write condescending Star Trek references. You know what I mean? And in like such a in-your-face way, like you're a fucking bitch if you didn't get that this was the bottle from season 3 from 2 episodes ago. You know what I mean? And like they just do this stuff where like here's a Tribble. Well, wait, why is that Tribble 3.5 feet long? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you spending an hour and a half babbling with me, man. This is super
fun.
It didn't seem that way to me.
No, anytime you want. I'm not
kidding. I really appreciate you told that MTV story because I'm going to send people this link.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And just like, hey, man, here's what happened.
Anybody who gives a shit about our bullshit Paramount experience.
Dude, you don't get it. You don't get it. We're Velvet Underground, man. Like 3,000 people buy our album. Like that's not a lot, but every single person who buys our album like starts their own band and gives us credit. You know, so like we got a few people talking to us, but we have people who love us. So that's awesome.
I just like
now they love you.
Star Trek. I'm usually just boring my family by like trying to like figure out how can I tell this anecdote about some Star Trek minutia to my wife and kid at dinner in some way that they won't look at me like, oh Christ, he's talking about Star Trek again.
Yeah.
So appreciate being able to talk
to you. All right, Rick. Thanks, man. Right. Let's call it. Thanks, everybody.
Good to talk to you all, you dork trekkers. Good luck. May the force be with you.